Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I am Maryam Zia. In today's program, we will be focusing on an important issue, that is education and its resonance with the manifestos of political parties of Pakistan as we are approaching the forthcoming elections. When we talk about Pakistan's constitution, of course we know that 8 years ago Article 25A was included in the constitution of Pakistan, which pledges for free and compulsory education for all the children between the ages of 5 to 16 in Pakistan. But when we talk about the implementation of this article, it remains missing. In today's program, we will be talking about political parties' manifestos, because when we look at the global north, we see that the debate surrounding education is in the mainstream, while in Pakistan there is no debate surrounding these crucial issues such as education. While we look at out of school children in Pakistan, the numbers are staggering and it stands at 22 million children are out of school in Pakistan. That comprises almost 45% of the children that are to hold the future of Pakistan. They are still out of school. And when we look at the GDP of Pakistan, that is of course less than 2%. And what needs to be done to allocate more budget to education? When we look at the roadmaps of different political parties, we will be talking in today's program. And of course, we will be talking about the critical questions that where should be the immediate focus of the new government when we talk about these crucial issues surrounding education. What are the best examples in the world that Pakistan can follow, and even in the region that Pakistan can follow? What needs to be done? What kind of structural reforms are needed in the education sector? What needs to be done to take these 22 million out of school children back to school? We will be talking about all these issues in today's program, and to discuss this and more, we're joined in the studios by Ms. Rozina Asif, who is an educationist and has been associated with the education sector for more than 24 years. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Mr. Javed Siddique, who is political analyst. Welcome to the program. And we are joined online by Dr. Javed, who is economist. Welcome to the program. So, Ms. Rozina, let me start with you. Of course, this is an important debate when we talk about challenges in the education sector. What do you think should be the focus of upcoming government, keeping in mind all the challenges, and what do you make of the manifestos of political parties when you look at the debate surrounding the forthcoming elections?
Okay, well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I think such type of programs create a lot of awareness among the voters, I must say, because voters, they need to know what are the manifesto of of different political parties, because they are the one who are going to select the next government. So it is very, very crucial to create the awareness. As far as manifestos are concerned regarding the political party, I think you have already shed a light about the different other countries, that how education is the main and the foremost area for their manifesto. So fortunately, yes, there are parties who are looking into this side of the political and economical growth that comprises of the education, I must say, initially. But there is a lot of things which need to be done, like if they have given certain agenda in their manifesto, that need to be measurable, number one, that need to be time bound, number one. And unfortunately, we have not seen that so far. Although they have touched upon the basic education till the matriculation, but what next? There is no agenda given into that.
And how to achieve that ultimate objective?
Again,
needs to be missing.
You must have gone through the data. There are a lot of schools which are called the ghost school. So what they have done about that? What they have done about the teachers training? What they have done about the skills development of those who could not score 60% maybe. That is the selection criteria for very good universities. what they have done about the graduating batch, those who could not find admission in the university because the number of universities are not enough. So there are a lot they need to do. There are a lot they need to
add. So,
Ms.
Rozina, you are also raising some very pertinent questions. So, let me take the same question to, of course, Javed Saab. Javed Saab, you have covered a lot of elections. What do you make of all the debate surrounding the current elections, particularly when we talk about education sectors? Because all the parties somehow, of course, make promises of free education for all, compulsory education for all. But do you see some concrete implementable steps how to achieve that objective, and why it's missing?
I think it's very unfortunate to note that the political parties have always ignored the most important aspect of our economic and social life, which is education. Since the inception of Pakistan, I would say that the political parties have never focused on raising the educational standards, A. Number two, they have never focused to provide universal education, as you have said in your intro, that the Constitution provides that every government is bound to provide compulsory education to every citizen, every child of this country. And we have said that 220 million children are out of school. It's a big tragedy, and this figure has been quoted in World Bank report, in UNDP report, and other reports.
Yes, and it has increased in past 2-3 years from 18 million to 22 million, which is very unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate. This is very, very tragic. So I think the political parties are more interested in grabbing the power, and they are not interested in actually giving education to the citizens. And despite all claims that the literacy rate in Pakistan is more than 50%, but in actual fact it is not, because we need to have a concrete, accurate surveys to ascertain as to what is the real literacy rate in Pakistan. We have seen floods of people without education, and I think that needs to be tackled, that needs to be focused. In the coming elections, so far I haven't come across any political party focusing on the debate on education, on providing education to citizens. And despite the fact that Pakistan's population, young population, is 64% of our total population. So we need to focus on our future, and our future lies in education. Our future lies in providing education to young people, girls and boys, so that they are able to serve this country in a better fashion, in a better way, and that's not being done. And I think the political parties I've seen talking about everything else, power sector, and they are talking everything else but education. So I think the world at large, and particularly the development institutions, international development institutions, are constantly advising us that you need to focus on your youth, which could be an engine of growth for you in future, and you need to provide them education. And also I think I've seen today a very enlightening article about Pakistan's education and all that. And that article emphasizes that we need to give education, particularly technical education, to our children, so that they are able to serve the country, so that they are able to get employment, so that they are able to get employment not inside Pakistan but outside. So that can be of great help. So I think the political parties need to focus on it, but unfortunately most of the, particularly the major parties, are missing this point.
And Dr. Hasnain, why do you think this is missing from the mainstream debate when we talk about elections, considering that when we talk about the political parties' manifestos of other countries, there is an important debate surrounding the education, what kind of reforms they are going to be doing. But in Pakistan, unfortunately, this debate seems to be missing. What is the reason, in your opinion, for that? And secondly, when we look at the countries like United States, it spends around 5.4% on education, UK around 5.3%, and countries like Namibia also spend more than 9% of GDP on education. But in Pakistan, unfortunately, the budget spending remains less than 2%. How can we align Pakistan's GDP to those standards?
Very pertinent question, and you have given the example of Namibia, and I'm going to start with it, and it is a coincidence that you have asking the same question. So now, try to understand that the less than 2% mean on the whole population, only 4 rupees 1 person on the education. Can we believe it? Can we believe it? Now that in 2021, Namibia spent the highest percentage of the GDP on education. So that means they understand the need of the education, which is above all of the key sectors on the manifestos. To be honest, I can just wanted to tell you there are the 18 indicators which should be in the manifesto. And manifesto consider all this, and none of the manifesto has covered this very indicator, and the point of all parties are on the zero on the education. So if I talk about the Namibia, they spend 9.64, you're very right. The exact percentage is 9.64, while Brahmunda spent the least of the 1.9. They try hard. Brahmunda is so less in the economy, but they try hard. By the region, the European Union, Sweden spent highest percentage of the GDP on the education, 6.7, followed by the Belgium, 6.3, Denmark is 6.0, and the EFTA countries, Iceland spent the highest percentage of 7.7. So the high income countries, by the income, if I talk about by the income, the countries spend 66% of the world, 5 trillion spent on the education each year, while low-income countries spend only 0.5, and we are among those countries, we are using less than 2%, which is above all, to me, is 0.5 to 4. So we are not contributing anyway out. So if I talk about the India, they are about 3.1% of the GDP. I'm not going into the detail, but I really appreciate Iran. According to the Iranian survey, I have seen that 1.5 to 2%, the GDP of the 10% of its budget to the education. And have you seen that according to the UNESCO, Iran has highest female to male ratio at the primary level of enrollment in the world among the sovereign nation. And Maryam, I just wanted to mention this point. We don't need the higher education, by the way. We need to focus on the school education and the primary education, which is the core of every country. And we are just focusing on the university or higher education because people have to pay and get the highest degrees, and which is of no use, MBAs and all. So these are the no use, but I'll later discuss this point. Now the China, which is very much important, we must have to replicate this order. In 2022, the public spending on education in China was around 3.9 trillion yuan. So making in the largest item in the government budget, this was around 4.01% of the national budget. So as far as the Pakistan is concerned, the unemployment rate in Pakistan, because you have discussed and you have created the landscape is very well in this circumstances. So unemployment rate in Pakistan was 6.42% in 2022 and 0.08% increase from 2021, while in 2022 it was 6.55%. So that means we are decreasing day by day. It is very offensive. So showing is a 1.72% increase from 2019, besides 4.83% in 2018 and 0.75% increase from 2018. And voter has swelled from 46.73 million in the last poll and 58.47 million in 2022.
So when you look at the political parties' manifestos over the years, since you have been associated with education for over 2 decades now, what kind of issues do you see have been consistent, like accessibility to education, quality of education, and what would you suggest to political parties to include in their manifestos so that we have a concrete roadmap for quality education and of course accessible education for all the children, and of course what kind of budget increase would you suggest?
Okay, well, everything starts with the budget, I must say. Number one, the awareness. Number one, that seriousness they need to know that how the education is going to bring the change in the socio-economic culture of Pakistan, how it is going to bring the happiness and the healthy culture among the youth, I must say, as Sir has already mentioned, that how many percentage of our population consist of the youth, which is very, very important to pay attention towards. So number one is to know the seriousness, that how serious it is that we are lacking in the education, that how many number of students are out of the school. Number two, allocate the budget. Number three, please define the strategy. It is not only that you allocate the budget, how you're going to spend.
What kind of measures or strategies would you suggest?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think the number one strategy should be to increase the number of schools, and of course the number of schools, when it need to be increased, the number of teachers need to be enrolled, they need to be given a proper training. And as it is very important, not only the curriculum that we are teaching in the schools are enough, but we need to bring the change in it. We need to bring the change in the assessment system overall. After COVID, we are exposed a lot to the general public that what is the quality of the education. The provision of the IT equipment was not there, and for 2-3 good years the students were out of schools because they could not afford those IT equipment, they could not afford that internet connections, and the internet connections are not available.
And how important is teachers training in all this? Because teachers were not trained to use those equipments and give them education.
When the single national curriculum was out in the schools, the very first thing that we faced was the teacher training, the lack of teachers training in that regard. So teachers training always is very, very important. It is, and I think I must suggest that the government should take private sector on board in that regard, and they should take training maybe from the private sector, because private sector can definitely bring the change in the education sector in that regard, in the public area, because private sector is somehow the other is providing a quality education in terms of latest curriculum, in terms of co-curricular activities, in terms of IT integration and so on. But public sector is lacking in that regard because it's a large sector, and the availability of the internet, maybe the availability of the IT equipment, availability of the trained teacher, the advanced curriculum is lacking. So the very first step could be that they can, that they can take the help from the private sector in this regard. And secondly,
and talking about the private sector, there are some segments of the society, specifically when we talk about education, still remains missing is the special education.
Yes.
What kind of measures do you think that the new government should be taking with regards to special education, and also keeping in mind the public-private collaboration as well? What would you suggest?
No, the kind of a special education, it depends, because we are still teaching the same old curriculum. Maybe your father must have read the same, and then you and then your next generation will have the same curriculum to have it in the schools. But this is the time is changed. There is a lot that need to be added into it. So special education needs another kind of attention, and along with the special education, the skill development education should also be there. As our online guest has already mentioned, that the more emphasis should be on the main primary education. Yes, about the university education, the skill development need to be there, the skill development education need to be there, because that will add into the economy of the country, that will add into the personal development of the...
Very, very important. So Ms. Rozina, lastly, if I asked you that, give us 2 to 3 concrete measures or implementable policy ideas for the new government or for the current political parties to incorporate in their manifestos, what would you suggest?
Number one, they should have a right survey. that what is the total number of population, what is the total number of schools, total number of graduates, and how they need to be involved in the university admission, and if not the university admission, what are the skill centers, and if not the skill centers, then where they're going to be employed. So of course they need to have a concrete survey about it. Secondly, they need to invest into the AI. AI is actually the emerging, field in education sector also. So they need to invest into that also. And timely investment in the AI in education sector will bring a lot of change, which is required for the social economical growth of Pakistan. So I think these two are the main areas. Number one, they should have a concrete survey, and number two, investment in the AI in education sector.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rozina Asif, for your valuable input in the program. And Dr. Sen, when we talk about, like we earlier discussed, that Pakistan only allocates less than 2% on education. So what do you suggest should be done to bridge the gap and to keep this GDP to the international global standards, or also maybe to the regional peers as well, because we know many countries of the South Asia also spends more than 4%. So what needs to be done?
See, first of all, we have to see the ECP statistics, because all is youth. So this is all about the upcoming election is about the youth and their education. Now, what we have to do, it is about the manifesto. And manifesto will depict and reflect what they are going to do with the young people of Pakistan. So now I wanted to mention all these. So ECP statistics reveal around 57.1 million youth aged between 18 to 35, make up by the 45% of those are eligible to vote. And the very important thing is the young female voter represent nearly 50% of the population. It is height. Now, female, the woman power is there now. So the election speech of all the political consensus are now replete with the word youth. So their statement in the election campaign are focused on providing job, promising to do all the effort of the youth of this country. So a political party in their election manifesto failed to mention as how to plan their improvement or improve their living standards. So let me tell you one thing. There are the 4 points I have taken down. One is the uniformity across the education, uniformity in learning across education. Second is curriculum, syllabus, system reform. Third is vocational and technical skill, and fourth is higher education, which I suppose at this time of space we don't have to spend, and we don't have to take much spending on the higher education. But there is ANP, MQM,
Dr. Sen, very important points highlighted by you. But when we look at the political parties' manifestos over the years, all these points like curriculum, uniformity, higher education, all these points are repeatedly mentioned in the promises, but we don't see any concrete action. That seems to be missing. What needs to be done for concrete or implementable policy measures or strategies for that purpose?
See, for this, we have to analyze first, because see, if I give you, for example, if I say we will spend the 6 to 7% of the total budget and we will not allocate any of the further about the 18 of the indicators, and we will use all the taxable returns on the education, it would not be possible, because I am the technocrat, I cannot use that. But now, if the election happens, we have to understand ANP, MQM, PMLN, PMLNQ, PPS Party, PTI, and GI. So what this says in the higher education, very importantly, in the uniformity in the learning across the education system, which is very much important, ANP says will work to eliminate multiple systems to education that protects and perpetuate classes and the feudal interest, which is completely irrelevant. Now, will we debureaucratize, decentralize education and governance, and work toward the elimination of the political interference and corruption in the education sector. Now, this point is very much valid. Now, take the priority number 1. Now, taking from the MQM, this says on the higher education system, this is the present dual system of education to be abolished, not to degrade the privately managed institute, but upgrade Urdu medium public sector education institute. Now, this is very logical point. Now, see, I mean, uniformity of the education cannot possible. So now the standards of the education, so this is about the, a dual system. So MQM is very much right. We can take the point from here. Now the grant and scholarship will be provided to such brilliant student for the student who come from the financially low. So that is also very much feasible plan. Now come up with the PMLN. This is the uniform system of the education will be introduced step by step to minimize the problem raised by the multiplicity. So this means they are little confused on the education. They haven't worked on it. So PMLQ, they have no clue about that. This is through equity-based targets, improve affordability, accessibility, give focus to the marginalized and create a sustainable education. So this means the PMLQ is more over towards the business of the education. So they are into educational business. So invalid from us. Then is the People's Party. That is very much important. The strive to first diminish and then remove the quality gap between the public and private school. Very, very important. I really appreciate on this point. This educational part, if they put it into the manifesto, that can create the real gap, bridging up the gap to ensure the great transparency and accountability in education at the national, provincial and district level. And ensure at the level
of course, like we earlier discussed as well, Dr. Hasnain, that all the political parties include some aspects of education in their manifestos, like you mentioned about these important points that were mentioned in 2018 manifestos of different political parties. But unfortunately, when we look at the implementation of these policies, these strategies, these measures remain missing. And that is the debate, and that is the point that we need to highlight for the political parties and for the policy makers, as well as for the public as well, to bring into their consciousness that the practical steps needs to be done. So Javed sir, when we talk about all these issues, we see that there is a politicization of education sector as well. There is debate that it is a provincial subject now and federal shouldn't be doing anything, and then there are other issues arising out of this. What needs to be done to depoliticize such a crucial subject?
I think the education has to be the priority number one of all political parties to handle and address the challenges that the education sector is posing to this nation. So I think the political parties need to think the whole paradigm of education in Pakistan. Provincial and federal governments must put their heads together to frame or chart out a roadmap, future roadmap for education in Pakistan. Article 25A that you have mentioned clearly manifests that all political parties and all governments need to give education, need to give access to education to every citizen, every child of this country. And in so many countries in the developed world, education is almost free.
Yes.
But here in Pakistan, it is not. The most unfortunate aspect is that the public sector education has gone down. It has been sliding down.
So quality is an important issue. Access to education is another important issue. Teachers training is another issue.
Even in pre-partition times, when the British were ruling this country, they established schools in almost every village of the subcontinent. And we have inherited hundreds and thousands of schools from the British times. But we have not been able to upgrade them. We have not been able to use the infrastructure that is available in terms of the school buildings and grounds and all that, playgrounds, etc. So Pakistan and the government of Pakistan, the political parties which are going to come to power through the elections, they need to focus on that. The public sector education needs to be upgraded. It needs to be, there needs to be to focus on this, because the private sector is too expensive. I mean, the education that is being imparted to children of well-to-do people is a quality education undoubtedly, but it is very expensive. It is not affordable.
So access is an issue. That not everybody.
So I think the government of the future governments need to focus on the availability or accessibility of education to every child in Pakistan.
As enshrined in the Constitution
And
of
inside
Pakistan.
That is
Right.
the most important. But
Right,
I
very,
don't.
very pertinent points highlighted by you, Javed Saab. So to talk more about this, we are also joined in the studios by Mr. Sheharyar Khan, who is international affairs expert. Welcome to the program. So Sheharyar, when we talk about 22 million out of school children in Pakistan, of course, this is very unfortunate because the number is increasing every year. But the key question, like Javed Saab also pointed out, that the budget spending remains very less. It is less than 2%, around 1.7% as per the World Bank report. And when we look at our regional peers as well, this number is very low as compared to India, Maldives, other countries of the region, Afghanistan even, yes, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan even. So what needs to be done to bring this debate to, of course, to the limelight, so that the GDP in political parties' manifesto is increased, and also the upcoming government focuses on this crucial subject?
So Maryam, this is a very important topic when it comes to, you know, how Pakistan wants to basically be a member of the international community and citizenry. These numbers that you just like mentioned, 23 million kids children out of school. 23 million is like more than population of a lot of European countries.
Yes,
by
and
the
it's around 45% of
45%
our
of
own
our
population.
Exactly.
Yes.
Given the fact that Pakistan has a population of over 240 million, this is a very devastating and a very alarming number. So when we talk about GDP spend on education, the kind of emergency that Pakistan is going through, UNESCO basically says, and it recommends that their benchmark for developing countries is between 4 to 6% of the GDP that they have to spend on education. And Pakistan is like around 2%, even it goes down from 2%, it's around 1.7% if we want to be realistic. When it comes to increasing the resources and the amount of spending that has to go from the budget, I personally see a lot of like political parties, they don't have a priority or commitment to the education system. And that is the only thing that can explain why, even after making promises and like writing these like statements down in manifestos, they don't really come to reality.
Because nobody questions them once they are in the government, that what measures they took for, you know, those promises.
The priority is always
regarding
very low. And even when we talk about these 23 million children that are out of school, this whole like geographical distribution of these children and the priority areas are different from different areas in Pakistan. For example, in Balochistan, when it comes to interior Sindh, out of school children are disproportionately more. When we talk about primary education, outside primary education, a lot of like kids are out of school. When it comes to the gender issues, a lot of like girls in Balochistan, certain areas of KP, certain areas of Sindh, they are disproportionately out of school.
So societal issues also
Societal
come
issues
into play.
also come into play. But that's where the government has to come in. And you also like mentioned after the 18th Amendment that education is the provincial subject. That like goes to show that if a certain province is like making the education policy, for example, if that province has a historically high number of children out of school, they should be prioritizing more part of their budget into education,
Right,
and that doesn't happen.
But still, like we earlier discussed, that this issue is also politicized because of this provincial. Some governments or some political parties may suggest the budget spending increased to maybe 6% in the GDP. Some others may suggest that it should be around 4%. But once it comes to cutting the budgets, first thing that of course bears the brunt of budget cutting is either the health sector or the education sector.
This is just a priority issue, and this is a commitment issue. Because as long as political parties feel that their performance will not be judged on education and on other indicators, they will never give education the priority. And unless or until the decision is made from the top that an education emergency is needed in Pakistan, a lot of political parties will not give it priority.
And when we talk about this education emergency, what kind of measures should be taken by the new government? Because we know that Pakistan ranks 106 out of 113 countries in the EFA Global Monitoring Report 2015. So what kind of concrete measures should be taken to go for that education emergency and to of course improve this ranking as well?
So Maryam, when we talk about increasing the budget allocation, how can we basically increase the pie of the
what should
economy?
be the ideal budget
What are the
spending for a
ideal?
country like Pakistan?
So it should definitely be around 4%. I know that, like, you know, the UNESCO basically says like between 4 to 6%.
6%
But
is
like
the
if we even get it to 4%, it would be a big win for Pakistan. Other than that, how can we exactly do that? First, we have to like go towards progressive taxation reforms, and this we've like been talking about for ages. Every government comes in, it is very directly linked to the amount of resources the government will be able to generate and basically redirect towards education. So progressive taxation, we have been discussing this. A lot of like governments are doing taxation reforms. We will need a lot more funds than there are currently available. Secondly, in a lot of like developed and developing countries as well, there is a concept of public-private partnerships in which the government has the infrastructure, it has the schools, it has the infrastructure available, and the private sector comes in and they basically have this like support from the government, and they collaborate and they adopt schools in the government where the government doesn't have the resources. So the whole concept of public-private partnership is there in Pakistan.
Do we have such examples in Pakistan when we look at the Danish schools?
Yeah. We have like a lot of like examples, but they're at a small scale. They need to be scaled up.
We can replicate those examples.
They can definitely be replicated. And then obviously international collaboration as well. There are like a lot of international organizations that are supporting, they give budgetary support to Pakistan.
But do you think education becoming the provincial subject hinders getting global support on education?
I personally don't think so, because internationally as well, education is a local subject, not even a provincial subject. And because we lack in promulgating local government systems, so provincial government is there that basically implements the education policy. The federal government can develop an overall policy for Pakistan, and then all the required like provinces, they can take inspirations and according to their local needs, for example,
tailor it as per their provincial
requirements,
needs.
and they should also tailor the budget according to their requirements as well. Punjab already spends a lot on education. It's not enough, but it's like as compared to the rest of the provinces.
So where technical education is needed, that is the main priority area in that particular province.
Exactly.
Where madrasas are playing a role, they should be included in the main education system.
In KP and former tribal areas.
Of course, very pertinent points and mayors highlighted. So, Dr. Hasnain, when we talk about education policies of Pakistan, what would you suggest that we can align those policies in terms of overall economic development goals of Pakistan?
As I already suggest that the uniformity learning across education, then is a curriculum, and then is a vocational and technical education. We should not spend much on the higher education, and all over the world it is not focused on the higher education. Higher education is the will of the person who wanted to explore his own will. So higher education is not needed at that time. So if we spend little about if we have to see the budget, we would nothing left in the deposits. So how can we produce the budget? So if we go on to the 3% of the budget, we have to allocate the lines. For example, the priority number 1, we must have to give the focus on the school system and the primary education. That's it. And then we have to focus on the vocational education. Should be free or whatsoever it is, should be the public-private partnership or the industrial people or the business people can contribute in that area in the education on the basis of the national interest, not on the basis of the business interest. And we have to stabilize the price of the private education as well, so that we can understand the level. But the higher education, the private university have earning like billions. So this is complete business to me. They are the investors, they are the big investors, they are the giant investors. I am very much not in favor of the higher education the way it is on to the move. And
right. Point well taken, Dr. Hasnain. Point well taken, but I personally think that if we have to move and make ourselves heard globally, we need to take into account higher education as well. Lastly, Javed Saab, what's your take, or what are your suggestions to the new government to, of course, take account into all these challenges and of course announce an education emergency, although we have other issues as well, but this is remains a significant issue that 22 million children are out of school.
I think the next government must focus on education sector, reforms in education sector, allocating more budget for education sector, and unfortunately our priorities are very confused. And when I've been covering the political activity and the parliamentary proceedings for the last 3 to 4 decades, but unfortunately,
did you see some improvement
I think
in how education has been addressed over the decades?
it has not been addressed properly, and there has been no serious debate in the parliament as to how to prioritize education sector, how to increase the budget for education sector, how to make education and schooling available to every child in this Pakistan. That has never been the priority. So I think there is a need to debate this issue. When the new government comes in, its first priority is to educate people. Education is key to progress.
Of course, to economic development, everything is of course linked to
everybody
education.
knows that economic growth depends on knowledge and education.
True.
And in tomorrow's world, knowledge-based economy is going to play the key role in transforming the fate of an education, of a nation. So I think the next government's first priority is to hold a conference, a national conference on education, and if we need educational emergency, yes, that must be done. But I think increasing the budget for education and giving serious thought to the multiple problems that the educational sector is facing need to be addressed, and that should be the priority number 1 of the new government. Let's hope that the new government does it, but I am doubtful about the priorities of the next next government, because their priorities are very different. And as you have said, that they have politicized the whole education
so
sector.
the first challenge is to depoliticize the education sector, of course.
And take it on merit.
Of course. Thank you very much, Mr. Javed Siddique, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheharyar Khan, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Hasnain Javed, for joining us in today's program. Of course, you heard the analyst and all the suggestions that are needed when we talk about the education sector. And of course, the right to free and compulsory education is enshrined in our constitution. And of course, political parties need to do more when we talk about education sector. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.